Eric, we all know that you've been investigated for corruption everywhere you've gone. City, state, even Barack Obama's Department of Justice investigated you. You've achieved the rare trifecta of corruption investigations. Is that really what we want in the next mayor? You think you're going to enter City Hall and it's going to be different? We all know it's going to be exactly the same. That's why so many people on the stage don't want you to be mayor. Like everywhere you've gone, Eric, people look and see that you don't pay attention to the rules of the road. You're unprincipled. You know, like you actually advised New Yorkers last summer to go confront their neighbors over illicit fireworks, and a woman followed your advice, Shatavia Walls, and she lost her life.
A few years later.
It is now my belief that the federal government intends to charge me with crimes. If so, these charges will be entirely false, based on lies. But they would not be surprising. I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target, and a target I became. For months, leaks and rumors have been aimed at me in an attempt to undermine my credibility and paint me as guilty. Despite our pleas, when the federal government did nothing as its broken immigration policies overloaded our shelter system with no relief, I put the people of New York before party and politics. Now, if I am charged, many may say I should resign because I cannot manage the city while fighting the case. I can also understand how everyday New Yorkers will be concerned that I cannot do my job while I face accusation. But I have been facing these lies for months since I began to speak out for all of you and their investigation started. Yet the city has continued to improve. Make no mistake, you elected me to lead this city, and lead it I will.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We got to talk about woke New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who is now facing a bombshell indictment from the Biden-led DOJ in relation to the federal investigation that has been happening into some of the alleged corruption that has taken place within his campaign and his administration, okay? Apparently, Eric Adams is acting as a foreign agent, right? I mean, it has something to do with that, okay? We don't know exactly what he's going to be charged with yet.
Adams reportedly charged with, quote, acting as an unregistered foreign agent for taking actions in his official capacity after receiving donations from foreign sources. It comes nearly a year into the federal corruption probe focused largely on whether Adams conspired with the Turkish government to receive illegal campaign donations. Last November, the FBI raided the home of one of his top fundraisers. They also searched the property of another aide who is a former Turkish Airlines executive. A few days later, agents seized Adams' electronics, including his iPad and cell phone. And in February, FBI agents raided the home of another top aide. Then in July, Adams was subpoenaed by a grand jury as part of the corruption probe. Earlier this month, agents searched the home of two more of the mayor's closest aides. Since then, several key figures of his administration have resigned, including the police commissioner, the city hall chief counsel.
And this is something that is shocking the country because Eric Adams was one of the mayors that had the cojones to speak out against the Biden administration and their insane immigration policies, okay? He demanded that the Biden administration close the border and to also give New York City more money to take care of the crisis because he was looking real bad, right? When Texas got smart and started sending the illegals to New York City, and New York City being a sanctuary city, a city where they must provide the illegals shelter. Yeah, he was stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? I mean, although it's kind of his fault because he was supportive of non-citizens voting, okay? He was supportive of those types of measures. I don't think he ever thought that he would have to deal with the border crisis himself. So he ended up lashing out against the Biden administration. And it just so happens, as he's lashing out against the Biden administration, he gets hit with an investigation from the FBI. I mean, they were pulling up on this man in the streets, okay, and raiding him in the street. This is what they was doing to this guy, right? They were publicly humiliating Eric Adams. Now, again, this is crazy because this guy is the Democrat mayor of New York, one of the most powerful Democrats in the country, okay? And it seems as if, because he stepped out of line with the Democrat Party, they're now pulling his card, which basically means that, hey, I'm not saying that he's innocent, okay? He probably is corrupt. I mean, I think he's corrupt as hell. I think all these politicians are corrupt, right? Again, this is why I roll my eyes when people want to have this conversation about character and how character is so important. And I'm not saying it's not. But let's not pretend that all of these politicians, a vast majority of them, 99% of them aren't corrupt as hell, okay? Because a vast majority of them are very corrupt. And what they do is that they pull your card, okay? They dig up dirt on you, okay, if you fall out of line. And I think that's what's happening to Eric Adams. Had he not fell out of line, this would not be happening, but because he fell out of line, it is happening, okay? And again, it doesn't mean that he's innocent. It just means that they're only going after him because he fell out of line. So I want to talk about it, but before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Noble Gold. Are you worried about the future of the U.S. economy? With so much uncertainty in the air, it is natural to fret about the security of your retirement savings. However, there's one asset that stands the test of time, and that is gold. For centuries, gold has been a hedge against market volatility and economic instability. With a gold IRA from Noble Gold Investments, you can harness the power of precious metals in order to secure your financial future. By rolling over your existing IRA or 401k into a self-directed gold IRA, you can enjoy the potential for long-term growth and stability. Diversify your portfolio with a tangible asset that has real value. Setting up a gold IRA with Noble Gold Investments has never been easier with its streamlined process and expert guidance. This election year, do not let the volatility and uncertainty keep you up at night. Vote for the timeless safety of gold and silver in 2024. And Noble Gold Investments will give you up to 10 1-ounce silver Trump coins or a 10-ounce silver American flag bar if you open a qualified account. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com now. That is noblegoldinvestments.com. And just remember, there's a risk with every investment and there's no guarantee of any kind.
The indictment to CBS News New York, but it remains sealed, so it's unclear what charges Adams will face. It does make him the first sitting mayor in New York City history to be indicted.
Tonight we have live pictures outside City Hall there on the left and Gracie Mansion on the right. Relatively quiet at the moment, but a different scene expected in the coming days in both venues when the mayor will have to enter a plea to the charges.
We have team coverage here for you tonight at 11. Political reporter Marcia Kramer has been working this story all night. Let's begin with Allie Bauman live outside Gracie Mansion tonight. Allie, what's the scene there?
Well, Christina Maurice, in a taped video message sent through his attorney tonight, Mayor Adams is maintaining his innocence, though he doesn't specify what exactly he's being charged with. Adams said that he's been fighting injustices throughout his life and vowed to fight what he calls these injustices with every ounce of his strength and spirit.
It is now my belief that the federal government intends to charge me with crimes. If so, these charges will be entirely false, based on lies.
In a video statement Wednesday night, Mayor Eric Adams says he will fight back against the federal criminal charges.
I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target, and a target I became.
Over the last few months, federal investigators have raided the homes and seized electronics from the mayor and many in his inner circle, including former NYPD Commissioner Edward Caban, who stepped down earlier this month.
So there's a traffic jam of investigations, subpoenas, searches, devices being seen. But this is the first thing we've seen that will actually result, we are told, in a charge being brought forth tomorrow.
Earlier Wednesday, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez became the most prominent Democrat to call for the mayor to resign, posting on social media, "The flood of resignations and vacancies are threatening government function. For the good of the city, he should resign." Adams shot back, penning in part for anyone who self-righteously claims people charged with serious crime should not be in jail to now say that the second black mayor of New York should resign because of rumors and innuendo is the height of hypocrisy.
Yeah, so I love this woke on woke conflict here from AOC and Eric Adams, okay? Because Eric Adams is basically low-key playing the race card. Oh, you can't ask the second black mayor of New York City to resign, right? This is essentially what he's saying, right? And that's par for the course when it comes to the race hustlers. Anytime they lose their job or they, receive any type of criticism, it has to be partly because of race. Now, AOC and other Democrats, lefty Democrats, far left Democrats, are demanding that Eric Adams resign because they want the opportunity to take over the city. So if you guys remember correctly, during the mayor race for mayor of New York City, you had Maya Wiley, who was a far left progressive, running against Eric Adams. And that was AOC's candidate of choice, right? That was the progressive candidate of choice. So Eric Adams resigning and taking a step back, for people like AOC and others, they see this as an opportunity for a complete far left takeover of New York City. New York City elected Eric Adams because he was supposed to be the more centrist Democrat, even though he's not a centrist. Okay, he is pretty left leaning as well too. But in New York and these blue states, again, they're on a whole nother political spectrum, right? They're in cuckoo for Cocoa Puff land. Okay, so that's what's going on here, right? So AOC is demanding that Eric Adams resigns because she wants the opportunity to have a far lefty take over the city, okay? And this is why Eric Adams should not resign. He should stand his ground, because if he steps down, it's not like they're going to get a Republican in place, right? Like, that's not going to happen, okay? Whoever replaces this guy is going to be more far left than him, right? So that is kind of what's going on here.
Wednesday, the outgoing school's chancellor insisted his decision to retire in the middle of the academic year this December was made before federal agents raided his home, which the 62-year-old shares with fiancée First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright and the home of his brother, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Philip Banks.
David is my brother, and the Banks family are my family. I valued Phil, who rose to the level of being the highest ranking person in charge of the police department, patrol force.
And tonight, the mayor is getting ahead of what's becoming a growing list of calls for his resignation, saying in the statement that he can understand why New Yorkers would be concerned that he can't continue to do the job while facing these accusations, but saying, quote, New Yorkers elected me to lead this city, so, quote, lead it, I will. Live outside Gracie Mansion on the Upper East Side, Allie Bauman, CBS News, New York.
All right, Allie, thank you.
And we're joined now by political reporter Marsha Kramer. A whole lot to go through here, Marsha. The angry, defiant mayor tonight. We looked at him there requesting an immediate trial. That's a stunning thing to do. What's going on there?
I think that he absolutely believes that he did nothing wrong. And you heard in his statement that he's going to fight this with every ounce of his strength and his spirit. And I think that he intends to try to prove that he did nothing wrong. The real question is, what are the charges and who else may be involved, and what charged with as well?
You know, Marisa and I interviewed the mayor back in November during a live broadcast, and I asked him point blank if he felt he was being targeted. He gave a political correct answer, but tonight he alluded to something else in that video statement. He believes he is being targeted.
Well, he believes, according to that statement, he believes that he was targeted by the Justice Department after he publicly attacked the immigration policies of the Biden administration. And I think that you can understand that some New Yorkers may believe that what he says is true, because he did take a very strident stance against the president's immigration policies at a time when the president was running for re-election and really cared about that. And it was sort of interesting that the raid that was done on the home of his chief fundraiser, Breonna Suggs, was on the very morning that he was in Washington at the White House for a conference on immigration, and he had to turn around and come back. There's a nexus there.
He really feels...
Yeah, so here's the thing. I believe Eric Adams when he says that he's being targeted. Now, does that mean that he's guilty or innocent? I don't know, okay? He probably is guilty as hell. I have no doubts in my mind that this dude is corrupt. But at the same time, the question is, would these charges be coming if he didn't speak out? That is what the question is, right? It's not about whether or not he's guilty or innocent. It's really about whether or not his card would have been pulled had he stayed quiet, like Brandon Johnson, like all the other mayors, when it comes to the disaster at the southern border.
He can beat this. Does that appear to be a real thing? I mean, like you said, an everyday person may look at this and say, look, he feels he fought immigration policies and now he's being persecuted. He really feels he has a case.
Well, here's the thing. Public corruption charges and cases are very difficult to prove. And even in cases where there's been convictions, like Joe Percoco, who was a top aide to Governor Cuomo, they are overturned. So he does feel he has a chance. And remember, if he fights it and he gets an immediate trial, I mean, I don't know how immediate it can be. Federal government takes a long time. But if he does, he might be able to even beat it, and he could conceivably run for re-election. Hard to believe, but he could.
Yeah. So CNN is not buying this, right? They're not buying this idea that Eric Adams is being politically persecuted, that this is because he was fighting for New Yorkers when it comes to the migrant crisis. And they also believe that if the feds are bringing charges against Eric Adams, then they probably have a pretty shut and closed case against him. Take a look.
Ellie, I mean, that in and of itself is remarkable that you're even saying that we'll see the mayor of New York City in a courtroom tomorrow as this indictment is being unsealed, which I should note, he gave a statement to the New York Times tonight and said, and I'm quoting him now, "I always knew that if I stood my ground for New Yorkers, that I would be a target, and a target I became. If I am charged, I am innocent, and I will fight this with every ounce of my strength and spirit."
Sure. And to your point, Caitlin, not only will we see Eric Adams, the sitting mayor, in a courtroom tomorrow in Lower Manhattan, we will see him sitting at the defendant's table with his criminal defense lawyers by his side, and he will enter a plea of not guilty. He will be advised of the charges against him in the indictment. As to his claim that he's being targeted because he's the mayor, New York City has had mayors for hundreds and hundreds of years, of course. He is the first one to be charged while sitting in office. So that sounds like a stretch to me.
He's the first one to ever be charged while sitting in office?
He's the first sitting mayor to be charged in New York City in the history of the city. And Caitlin, by the way, one thing I should add here, the Southern District of New York, the office that's prosecuting this, federal prosecutors, has a long history of prosecuting corruption crimes in the city and the state of New York. Just within the last several years, the SDNY has successfully prosecuted the top Democrat in the New York State Assembly, Sheldon Silver, and the top Republican in the New York State Senate, a guy named Dean Skello. So the Southern District of New York knows how to do these corruption cases. They usually have them buttoned up by the time they get to this point of an indictment.
Well, walk us through what this looks like if you are a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York and you're leading up to this. Obviously, prosecutors should use discretion with every indictment that they bring. But to indict a sitting mayor of New York City, which, as you noted, has never happened in the history of New York City. I mean, what is the bar like for something like that? I'm
going to put this real unscientifically for you. If you're going to charge the sitting mayor of New York City, you better be damn sure that you have the evidence on him, because if you don't, it will be a disaster. Now, look, as John Miller laid out, there were a lot of indicators, not so subtle indicators over the last several months, pointing in this direction, a series of subpoenas, search warrants, charges of other people around the mayor. But the big question that we now have an answer to is, were prosecutors going to be able to link all that to the top guy, to the mayor? It does happen sometimes that you're investigating a case and you have a lot of smoke around an individual, but you can't necessarily tie the key player, the boss, the mayor, whoever it may be, into that criminality. But we now know that the SDNY does believe it can do that and ultimately prove it beyond a reasonable doubt to a unanimous jury, by the way, of New Yorkers, of a jury pool that will be drawn from Manhattan and the Bronx and the other northern counties. So, man, they better be darn sure in this charge if they're going to bring it.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? All I know is this. Eric Adams, it's not too late to come out in support of Trump. Let's be real. Let's keep it 100. It's not too late to come out here and say that, hey, I support Trump. Why do I say that? Well, the reason why I say that is because if Trump wins, then, hey, potentially he can make this all go away, because Trump claims that he is facing political persecution as well, too. I mean, I think we all know that's definitely what's happening with Trump. I'm not entirely sure if that's what's happening with Eric Adams. Wouldn't be surprised. Again, I think the timing here is strange, okay? Right before the election, Eric Adams speaking out about the border crisis, demanding more resources from the federal government. Yeah, I mean, I think that he's being punished, right? Because this is what Democrats do to their blacks, right? They get them back in line when they fall out of line, right? They crack that whip on them. And that's what they're doing to Eric Adams. But they're giving him like the stiffest punishment, right? They're actually trying to lock this man up, okay? Because he committed the gravest of crimes against the Democrats, which is to call out their failures, right? As a Democrat, to speak out against them, right? So this is the treatment that he's getting. And whether or not he's guilty or innocent, I just don't think that he would be facing these charges had he not spoken out against the Biden administration. I think him speaking out against the Biden administration so publicly as one of the most powerful Democrats in the country is what put the nail in his coffin. And I just find it fascinating how these guys always face punishment, right, when they go against the Biden administration. But yet Biden, who in my opinion was acting as a foreign agent, right, doing some of the same things, why is the DOJ not going after him for basically doing the same thing? I mean, all these politicians are selling themselves to foreign countries, right, selling out this country. I'm just trying to figure out why they haven't gotten the big guy yet. Why is it that Joe Biden is not facing an indictment and charges, okay, because he's just as guilty as Eric Adams and all the other Democrats selling out this country to foreign entities. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.